The difference between the Sabbath and the Lord's Day. In the Bible, we read that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, establishing the Sabbath as a day of rest. However, it took a long time for the Sabbath to be fully implemented. Although God instituted the Sabbath after creation, its concrete application didn't begin until the time of the Exodus, when it was first given to the Israelites. Prior to this, there is no special record of the Sabbath being observed, nor is there mention of Abraham or Isaac keeping it. The first reference to the Sabbath appears during the event of the manna. On this holy day, God commanded the Israelites to gather double the amount of manna on Friday, as there would be none to gather on the Sabbath, which was Saturday. This marked the first mention of the Sabbath, and from then on, it became a commandment for the people of Israel, passed down for over 1,500 years. Over time, the laws surrounding the Sabbath became more detailed and stricter. By the time of Jesus, the observance of the Sabbath had become so strict that people were prohibited from walking more than 1.1 kilometers or engaging in any form of labor. After the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, the Lord's Day, Sunday, began to replace the Sabbath in Christian practice, and today we observe the Lord's Day as a day of worship. Yet both the Sabbath and the Lord's Day seem to have deviated from their original intentions and purposes. At one point, there was some debate about the timing of evening services on the Lord's Day. Traditionally, evening worship was held at 7 p.m., but some churches began holding evening services at 4 p.m., and others even at 2 or 3 p.m. This led to some controversy over what was proper. However, the issue of when we worship is not the central concern. Whether we worship all day or for just 5 minutes is not what defines proper observance of the Lord's Day. What truly matters is how we honor the rest that God commanded. The key issue is not the specific day, whether it's Saturday or Sunday or the exact time of worship, but rather the reason and purpose behind God's command to rest. God wanted the Israelites to use the Sabbath not merely as a day of physical rest, but as a day set apart from the other 6, a day devoted to activities that would please God. True Sabbath rest is not just about ceasing physical labor. It is about dedicating the day to God, engaging in what brings Him joy. Fundamentally, this means remembering God, giving thanks for His grace, and communing with Him. This was likely God's original intention for giving us the Sabbath. However, over time, people became more focused on how to observe the Sabbath rather than why it was given. In other words, they forgot the God who gave them the Sabbath and became consumed with the obligation to keep the day. Even though the Sabbath has been transformed into the Lord's Day in Christianity, the issue remains much the same. Whether it's the Jewish Sabbath or the Christian Lord's Day, the true purpose has often been forgotten. To experience true rest, we must first understand who we are, who our Creator is, and why God called us. We must also realize whether we are living according to God's will and purpose, and the only way to do this is by having Jesus in our hearts. Only when we have Jesus in our hearts can we fully understand the purpose of life, and only with Him can we find true rest. The key to experiencing this true rest is not in any specific method or practice, but in being in Christ, and Christ being in us. In Him, we find the answers to life's fundamental questions, and in Him, we can finally experience true peace. To reiterate, God gave us the Sabbath to help us realize our need for true rest. True rest can only be found in abiding in Jesus and being under God's grace. We must examine how we are participating in the Lord's rest today. If we observe the day out of obligation or responsibility, we will not enter into God's true rest. Strive to enter the rest that was originally granted to us. This rest is not about merely observing Sunday or accumulating merit through service and dedication. Whatever we do, the first and foremost priority is to welcome the Lord into our hearts. This is the secret to returning to the rest God originally intended for us.
구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정 해주세요. Subscribe, like, set notifications.